Okay, imagine waking up to this headline. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro is in U.S. custody, not extradited, not escorted politely, captured. The U.S. calls it justice. Caracas calls it an abduction. And the UN? The UN basically says, this is how international law starts crying. Something extraordinary just happened in the Caribbean. U.S. warships, Marines, drones, and intelligence assets converged near Venezuela. And soon after, President Nicolas Maduro was taken into U.S. custody. Washington says this was law enforcement. Caracas says it was kidnapping. But this moment didn't come out of nowhere. To understand why the United States thinks it can do this, we need to rewind decades to oil, power, and a system that slowly collapsed. Venezuela should have been an energy superpower forever. It holds the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, even more than Saudi Arabia. In the mid-20th century, oil made Venezuela rich, very rich. By the 1970s, it had the highest GDP per capita in Latin America. But here's the trap. Oil became everything. By the 1990s, oil made up approximately 90% of exports, approximately 70% of government revenue, approximately 40% of GDP, which meant the entire country lived and died by oil prices and corruption. Between the 1970s and 1990s, an estimated $100 billion vanished into corruption. When oil prices crashed in the 1980s, Venezuela had no backup economy. Then came austerity, IMF bailouts, cuts, riots. In 1989, Venezuela exploded in unrest, and riding that wave of anger was a former paratrooper, Hugo Chavez. Chavez wins power in 1998, promising redistribution and dignity. At first, it works. Poverty falls. But Chavez does three things that matter later. He fires thousands of experienced oil workers after a 2002 strike. He nationalizes oil, driving out Western firms. He ties welfare spending directly to oil prices. When oil is expensive, the system looks brilliant. When oil falls, it becomes a bomb. Chavez dies in 2013. The bomb goes to Nicolas Maduro. In 2014, oil prices collapse again, from $100 to under $30. Venezuela can't pay for subsidies, imports, or services. Hyperinflation follows. Shortages follow. Millions flee. Maduro responds the only way authoritarian systems know how: crackdowns, arrests, election manipulation. By 2018, elections are so contested that much of the world stops recognizing him at all. Here's the crucial shift. The US doesn't just say, Maduro is illegitimate. It says, Maduro is a criminal. Washington accuses Maduro and his inner circle of running a narco-state, the so-called Cartel of the Suns, allegedly working with regional gangs and international cartels. Sanctions escalate. Oil exports collapse. Indictments follow. At this point, Maduro isn't treated as a head of state. He's treated as a wanted fugitive who happens to control a country. By the mid-2020s, sanctions failed to remove Maduro. Diplomacy failed to remove Maduro. Venezuela deepened ties with Russia, Iran, and China. And U.S. influence in the Western Hemisphere was eroding. So Washington pivots again, from pressure to coercion. Military deployments, drone strikes on alleged cartel targets, and finally, direct action. This is how Venezuela ends up here. A petro-state built on oil, hollowed by corruption, shattered by price crashes, locked into dictatorship, and redefined by the U.S. as a criminal enterprise rather than a sovereign government. Whether Maduro's capture brings stability or chaos, or sets a precedent that comes back to haunt everyone, that part of the story hasn't been written yet.